Hey guys, and welcome back to my review of Ruin, the 4th episode of the 5th and final season of Gotham. The show does keep getting better every week, doesn't it? I mean, the episode was amazing, even though the references on it were less by the comic books and more by previous iterations of these characters that we watched on this episode, as well as other characters, like the Joker on Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, Scarecrow on Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises, and the Riddler on Batman Forever. But there was also this little moment that I could relate more than anything to Christopher Nolan's Memento. So yeah, Christopher Nolan's getting a lot of love on this episode. But on this episode, Penguin has got more of the power that he's always been craving, and with the vote of the people, Victor Zsasz is back, Jim Gordon and Oswald Cobblepot have both won some things and lost some other things on this episode. Penguin on one hand got some Gothamites, a lot of Gothamites actually, on his side and away from Jim, while Jim, however, was able to save Victor Zsasz. None of them, in the end, was able to find out who the real perpetrator of the Haven bombing was. But on another note, and before we dig into more detail, Barbara is definitely on her way to redemption, and chances are the show is setting her up to become Barbara Gordon from the comics. Now, considering it seems I have to make this one clear every time around, I'm talking about Barbara Gordon, the wife, and the mother, and not the daughter. But in the spirit of not wasting any more time talking about the episode in general and focusing more on the details of the episode, let's get started with number 1. Now you, or anyone actually, would have thought that Penguin would be the primary suspect for the explosion in Haven as of the end of last week's episode. But while Penguin being the primary suspect might have been our initial thought, Barbara, as of the beginning of the episode, is the primary suspect. But that also brings us to number 2, Barbara is definitely changing. Yes, the possibility of blowing up of the Sirens' territory is a fear that she has over here, just like Haven was blown up, but we're still slowly but steadily getting back bits and pieces of the Barbara Keene that we got to know in Season 1. Her question to Jim early on in the events of the episode, "Do you really think I could have murdered all those people?" The look on her face as she asks it, the fact that it seems that she wants Jim to believe more in her, believe she's better than that. All of that put together does go to show how much humanity Barbara has still got to her name. So yeah, I'm still under the impression that she might end up being Barbara Gordon and once again, wife not the daughter, not Batgirl, not the Oracle, but rather her mother. Now add to all of this the fact that she ended up visiting Jim in the office close to the end of the episode, trying to keep that solid, being sarcastic crust, yet trying to tell him that she cares at the core, the fact that it all ended with a kiss. And that the episode ended on that note, like it was that big event that ends an episode, something worthy of being equated with some kind of a cliffhanger at the end of any episode. Once again, all of that put together does tell us that we're probably gonna end up getting a Barbara and Jim getting together, being a couple, by the end of this season. Number 3, we finally get a decent fighting scene for Bruce Wayne this season, and the good news is, one Alfred Pennyworth is back, because he's been missed. I do love that on the scene when Alfred shows up, and in many scenes actually since the beginning of the season, how Bruce tries to talk with this deepened voice. Like, you know, where's Rachel, deep Christian Bale kind of voice. It's a bit of an Easter egg considering this is a trademark of Batman, and definitely quite the decent attempt at achieving that voice. But number 4, one of these days you're gonna realize you can't save her from herself. Now that was Alfred talking to Bruce about a realization that he would come to so many times in the comics, even though he usually does keep trying. But however, there's also the fact that both of them would one day be part of a Rebirth reboot, and we would end up hearing of a Batman and Catwoman wedding. Number 5. I always loved it when Penguin and Jim worked together, something about Penguin being Jim's friend, the Penguin who has always wanted Jim's approval in a way that has always been something that has felt amazing about the character of Penguin on the series. It just always felt like Penguin has this multiple personality disorder, the Penguin who hates and the Penguin who cares, even though we know that Penguin does what he does for an endgame, like always. But number 6, we are back to Nygma. No, he has not showed up on last week's episode. The messages he leaves himself on the palm of his hand reminds me of several movies out there, usually ones where one personality leaves a recording or a message for his other personality on a piece of paper, talking about people with multiple personality disorder over here. But then again, there's Memento, where Guy Pearce's body is really filled with all these messages that he leaves himself, given a short-term memory loss. Now, the idea of Memento being the most entertaining of all of these movies that do come to mind in this situation is not just that Memento is a great movie, but also the fact that it was directed by none other than Christopher Nolan better known for directing my favorite set of Batman movies, the Dark Knight trilogy. Number 7, the return of Victor Zsasz, whom we've not seen since he betrayed Penguin on Season 4 under the notion of loyalty to his original masters, the Falcones. But worth noting over here is that Victor Zsasz in the comic book version of the story did as well hold his own territory in Gotham. But moving on to number 8, Penguin and Jim teaming up on one hand, offer being made by Penguin, and Ed and Lucius Fox teaming up on the other hand, only the offer over here is made by Lucius Fox. Well, in my opinion, the more of these weird-ass team-ups, the merrier, and definitely the better. But let us start with Penguin before we go for Nygma. So Penguin over here does go for his own version of Judge, Jury, and Executioner with Victor Zsasz. Once again, it is about Penguin being the ruler of Gotham in a manner of speaking, because that's one of the things he cares about the most, but he also cares about gaining the vote of the people and their confidence and painting Jim in a bad light. That is exactly what he achieved over here. As he kept talking and talking in that bogus court of his, I could only think of one thing: Cillian Murphy's portrayal of Scarecrow on The Dark Knight Rises, and that bogus court of his on the very same movie. Interestingly enough, and may I remind you, that The Dark Knight Rises was based on several arcs out of the comics, including, but not limited to, No Man's Land. But moving on to number 9, Nygma being behind the Haven explosion. Now, I always knew that Nygma was probably behind what happened to the bikers gang. I never did expect he was behind this one, and for so many reasons. Even though his absence on last week's episode did feel kind of weird, the fact that the bikers did not mention his name, not even once, to Penguin, that was kind of weird as well. But I did discard both ideas as the product of either sloppy writing or the possible need to create a plot device. Obviously though, once we started watching this episode, watching Nygma on this episode, we started realizing, okay, so Nygma did it. Now what? Well, back when the season started, I did talk about a villainous Nygma, as per Zero Year. The fact that he was the first we would see on the premiere of this season out of all the Batman rogues did hint at the possibility that the series would be going with the Zero Year scenario with the Riddler as the major villain of the season, and right now I think that the second persona of his might be just that. Number 10. Nygma pushing that poor woman who witnessed his crime, throwing her out of that window. That just seems to have been inspired by none other than Jim Carrey's version of the Riddler on Batman Forever. That's exactly what he did to his boss at Wayne Enterprises during the events of Batman Forever when he discovered that he was still working on that project that Bruce Wayne ordered stopped a while before. Worth noting over here that while both scenes are pretty similar and pretty comparable, Corey Michael Smith's portrayal of the Riddler is way better than that of Jim Carrey. Number 11. Before doing this review, I was reading some comments on the episode, and a lot of people just seem to believe that the Riddler is the one behind all of this, and Nygma is the one doing the research, just trying to figure out what this other persona is doing by night. However, though, may I remind you that the very same person who's been researching all of this has actually identified himself as the Riddler at the very beginning of the season. He has been under the impression that Nygma is the one taking control through the night, doing whatever he is doing. So I'm assuming over here, and based on the trailer of next week's episode, that Nygma is either the one doing all of this, like the Nygma persona, not the Riddler persona, and all out of a place of a twisted notion of vengeance against Penguin, or it is about what Hugo Strange did to him at the end of Season 4, giving him a third persona in the process. Now, I would support the third persona option more than the first one, only because soon enough everyone is going to find out about what Nygma did, and in that case, on the 390-something day of the No Man's Land arc, it just doesn't make any sense that he'd be joining in next to Jim Gordon, fighting whatever attack is coming Gotham's way. I just can't imagine that Jim Gordon would cooperate with Nygma once he finds out that one of his two sides, the two sides to his personality, was behind all of this. A third personality though, or more like a second, because I usually see the Riddler and add his two sides to one personality, would probably be more like it, because it is something that I could see the Riddler or Nygma being able to get rid of, by some twist of fate, some kind of treatment, but however, it is something that he could get rid of. But moving on to number 12, Jeremiah is back and he's playing one hell of a Joker. He might not have the label of Joker on the series, but we've gotta admit he's presenting us with a Joker level of insane. The way he mumbles, the way he talks to himself, that is Joker material. Not exactly like Heath Ledger's Joker, but enough to be an iconic portrayal, with enough similarities as well to that version of the Joker. But number 13, the way Echo acts around Jeremiah, she's getting closer to a semi-decent portrayal of Harley Quinn. Now, I know a lot of fans are gonna be like, okay, Harley Quinn has to be Harleen Quinzel. But let us just remember for a moment that before there was a name, the Quinzel name, there was a concept. And the concept over here happens to be the character and personality of Harleen Quinzel, and that is exactly what I'm trying to discuss over here. Not the name, but rather the personality and the character itself. But finally though, number 14, Selina stabbing the shit out of Jeremiah. So easily, so effortlessly killing him, that was at best anticlimactic. Hope they're not planning on bringing him back using the epic skills of Hugo Strange or any other kind of voodoo magic, because yeah, too much of that already. And it has also been done once with Jerome. But that being said though, my work here is done, so let me know in the comments down below if you did like this video, if there are any Easter eggs I might have missed on this episode, because I probably missed a couple. I was running a so little sleep and watching with half a brain. Now if you did like the content of this video, make sure you drop it a much appreciated like, subscribe, and enable notifications for my future videos, community posts, and live streams. Until the next time you tune in for another one of my Gotham videos, or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this review, and have a great day.